Hey, what's going on, fellow drivers? Sebastian here with Spin Driving School. Today we are going to take a look at yield signs and yield chutes or sleeves, as some people like to call them, and other merging situations, as well as a couple of roundabouts. So by request, we are going to get into yields. Say it, yields. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so in most cases, a yield sign is going to be present more commonly either at roundabouts or at, as I said earlier, yield chutes or yield sleeves. They're strange words. I even tried to Google it once and I couldn't really come up with any proper terminology for yield chutes or sleeves or these little, getaway lane situations. It's actually not a getaway lane, but that's a different thing. But anyways, those are probably going to be the most two common occurrences where you'll see a yield sign or where you have to yield to someone. Now in downtown Vancouver, other cities, other municipalities, there might be different situations. I'm mainly talking about Burnaby and the surrounding areas. So technically the way you want to think about it is when you're moving forward and you have a yield sign ahead of you, you are essentially going into a single lane traffic situation. So that means you are pretty much immediately merging with someone else's lane or someone else's road, if you want to call it that. So again, in a roundabout, these are all single lanes. So you're yielding to any vehicle that is in the roundabout. Essentially think of it as a four-way. So the car that is closest to the roundabout should have the right of way. The vehicle that is moving within the roundabout will have the right of way. And for yield chutes or yield sleeves, as long as there's a yield sign, first and foremost, well, without or without the sign, you have to yield to pedestrians if there's a crosswalk present inside or sometimes ahead of the yield chute. So if there's a pedestrian crossing, which I'll show some examples of that in the video, you have to yield to the pedestrian first, and then if there's a yield sign, you have to yield or stop or let the traffic coming from your left-hand side, essentially from your left-hand side behind you, the traffic that is coming in or turning in or merging in will have the right of way. So you have to stop in that little section in the yield sleeve or chute to yield to the other cars. And I've said the word yield now way too many times and I feel like I'm gonna pass out. So let's just get right to this video. Here we go. Okay, so this first one is from a yield chute. It says there merge traffic or yield to the traffic coming from the left-hand side or to the left. And there's a crosswalk up ahead in this situation, which we'll show that in the video. There's your pretty much standard yield sign. And then this is the one that you'll see in roundabouts or traffic circles. So now we'll just get into the sequence of videos. Here's your first yield chute. So this one does not have a yield sign, but there's a crosswalk. So if there are people crossing, they absolutely have the right of way first. If there's no one crossing, you can just keep moving. So this truck actually is going a little bit too slow, and I mean basically he's stopping. There is a getaway lane in this case, so that's kind of where I misspoke earlier. Some of these yield chutes will have a getaway lane. So if there's no yield sign, normally you're not going to be yielding with the other lane. You have a getaway lane, so you can just keep moving, and then you're going to be merging later on or making a lane change. So that truck should have just kept moving, but obviously I'm going to react to it. And yes, you still need to shoulder check going into those yield chutes. It's still a right turn, so there's a right shoulder check. There's nobody crossing, so I'm going to stop after the crosswalk. Do not block the crosswalk ever. And obviously that car had the right of way because he was in my lane. Now there's another car, or was another car behind me, but he ended up making a lane change. So I'm just going to shoot through here. So again, if someone is crossing, stop for pedestrians first if there is a crosswalk in those yield chutes, because some of them do not have a crosswalk, which I'll get into in a second. So that's where you want to be stopping, the car that's in the circle there, either before or after the crosswalk. But if no one is crossing, you're going to be stopping in that second portion there. So there's a pedestrian right there. She's about to cross. Now this first car is going to go through. However, I'm going to stop. So I'm stopping before the crosswalk and I'm stopping completely. I don't really want to be rolling or inching forward too much when the pedestrian's crossing. And now I'm going to look to the left, checking for traffic coming from my left-hand side. If there's no one there, I keep it moving. Okay, so I'm not stopping there unless I'm yielding to either pedestrians or traffic or both. In this case, no one is crossing, so I'm just moving right through. I'm gonna let this van go, shoulder check, off we go. So, you know, you shoulder check to the right before you approach, and then I guess you kind of shoulder check into the left or looking left. I mean, it's not really a shoulder check, but you are looking to your left hand side. Lane change, one more. So obviously shoulder checks for that. I'll be making a video on lane changes and shoulder checks separately. See where the blue car is stopped? That's where you should be stopping. No one's crossing. Looking to the left, if there's no vehicles coming from your left hand side, we are merging to someone else's lane. Hence, again, that's why those yield signs usually exist in those yield chutes. So anywhere you have a yield sign, again, you're going to be merging with someone else's lane. So don't just go unless you know it's clear. Again, clear, just keep it moving. No reason to stop if you know the road or the intersection is clear. Now in this case, I'm making the left turn on the green arrow, and if you see that white car on the right hand side, he should have been yielding to the first car and then obviously to me. So don't stop where he stopped. He should have been stopped, or he should have stopped a lot earlier. Traffic circle or roundabout. There's a yield sign on the upper right hand side. I'm making the left turn in this case, I believe. So there's no one else moving within the roundabout, and I've made a video separately on traffic circles and roundabouts, so check that one out first. Rock and rolling, just keeping it moving. Nice and steady, nice and smooth, good control. Again, roundabout, traffic circle, there's your yield sign to the right hand side, and every single road in this case actually has a yield sign. So again, whoever is in the roundabout or the closest, kind of like a four-way stop sign, the keyword is should have the right of way. Now in this case here, this one is kind of weird because this one has a yield sign and it does have a getaway lane. So, you know, I said earlier that most of these without the yield sign will have a getaway lane, and you don't really have to yield to anyone. So I'm not really sure why the yield sign is there. It does have a crosswalk, which that's pretty straightforward. Most of them have crosswalks, so that's not a problem. But there was a getaway lane, I guess because that lane turns into another street maybe, and it's just a turning lane. It's not really a getaway lane. Perhaps that could be it. Not sure. So that red car there, if they're turning, and if I'm that green car on the right hand side, that's who I'm yielding to. I'm yielding to the cars coming from the left hand side. Whether they're coming from the left hand side then they're turning, or whether there's just a street there. So this is actually the yield chute that was in the previous picture. There are those signs on the top right and left side. In this case, I had a green light, so no one was coming from the other direction. And then this yield chute here does not have a yield sign at all, so you just keep moving. You don't stop here. You have your own lane, and then eventually, you know, you might be merging, or that lane will remain for X amount of time. In this case, it just keeps going. And then to the right, you have a merging lane that actually merges with my lane eventually. So in this next video, you will see same situation, just from the coming in from the right hand side. So now I'm going into the yield, and I have to yield to any vehicles that are coming from my left hand side. It's kind of like merging on the highway. If you've done that, it's the same thing. So now my lane ends and I have to merge with someone else's lane. So I'm essentially making a lane change. Make sure it's safe, clear, shoulder check. You know, use your eyes and mirrors to gather as much of information, you know, what's going on behind you or to your left hand side as possible. So I hope that helps. And stay safe out there, keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.